Well, hey guys, or as I was raised in New England, hey you guys, even though I know Carol probably said, hey y'all, and having married a Southern girl and have now lived most of my life in the Southern parts, I have gotten used to saying hi y'all. But this is Michael from What the Scale. I'm actually the what part. And what I mean by that is, what are you talking about? If you've watched our other videos, you can see often Carol giving me that look. It's either what are you talking about or what do you mean? So, but I'm glad to have you. Carol's given her story. We've given our combined story. And now it's time for my story with regards to my weight loss journey. It does go back, as I know Carol shared many years ago. It got to the point that I was at 265 pounds. I'm only 5'9", so that was considered very obese. Now, part of my excuse is I had a condition called polycystic kidney disease. So both of my kidneys were loaded with cysts. Um, I finally would have them removed after a kidney transplant, and both of them were the size of a Nerf football. In fact, maybe with Carol's editing, she can show you my before and after photos of within 24 hours of my kidneys being removed. But needless to say, I had the traditional beer belly, but I don't drink beer at all. I don't drink any alcohol. But I started to use that as an excuse. Well, unfortunately, even after the kidneys were removed, the weight still needed to be lost. So I began to work diligently with Weight Watchers. Carol and I began going together, and both had significant success. I believe she lost right around 100 pounds. I went from 265 all the way down to 185, which was my goal weight at the time. And in fact, I actually became a Weight Watchers instructor. I actually served as an instructor for a good period of time and finally had to stop because I had a major hemorrhagic stroke in 2019. Prior to that was, of course, as I mentioned, the kidney surgery. So I got all the way down to 185. Then, of course, talking about the stroke, and the weight really began to pile on because I couldn't do much. During my time after the kidney transplant, I was walking 8 to 10 miles a day. I mean, literally 8 to 10 miles a day. But after the stroke, of course, I could not do any of that whatsoever. So time went on and the weight kept coming back on. And so in February of this year, February 28th to be precise, Carol and I decided to go back to Weight Watchers. And at that point in time, I weighed 227 pounds. So I'd gotten down from the 265, but of course I got down to 185. So as you can see, I'd gained over 40 pounds in that time of the weight coming back on. And so from February 28th all the way till October the 13th, and I'm giving that date because that's about the time that I started the intermittent fasting. Carol had started before me and was seeing success. You've heard our combined story. You've heard her story. I finally said, "Hey, I've got to try this." So at that time, on October the 13th, I was at the 195 pounds that I dropped down to. So if you take from February the 28th all the way to the October date, that was a total of 33 weeks, and I had lost 31 and a half pounds. So if you divide that out, my average weekly weight loss was 0.95. So most probably would not argue with that, but it just wasn't enough for me. Carol starts the intermittent fasting. I decided to give it a shot and began to lose weight a little bit more rapidly. And I'll jump fast forward, but I'm going to still fill in some blanks. But I started the alternate day fasting on October the 7th is when I started the alternate day fasting. And during that time, if I just count the beginning of the intermittent fasting to the alternate day fasting, bringing me to today, I am averaging a total of, where's my notes, 1.57 pounds per week over 9 weeks, which is, if I do the math and show you the math, it's an increase of 53.7% more than I was losing with Weight Watchers. So as you've heard us say combine, Carol, as well, during the initial intermittent fasting, we stayed with Weight Watchers. So the two combined worked quite well. What became the dilemma for us is as we'd hear these other stories about intermittent fasting and not worrying so much about what you eat as long as you follow the program and don't go into the junk food routine, we began to realize I didn't want to keep doing the tracking. I didn't want to just keep doing things and worrying about how many points something was. And I wanted to eat some of the foods that I really miss that would cost a lot. If you listen to the combined video that we did the night before, we went to a place called Blinkers in downtown Covington. That was our up day. I think Carol talked about it. I'll give you a little bit overview between down day and up day. But for that dinner meal, I had a bone-in ribeye steak, medium done. You don't want to go beyond medium. That's not a steak. That's roadkill. Then I had my baked potato with extra butter, and I had the most delicious cinnamon roll bread pudding. It was about that round and about that high. I couldn't eat it all, but I ate about half of that and about 3/4 of my prime rib, all my baked potato, and came home, weighed this morning, and actually still, despite eating all that, because of the alternate day fasting, I lost weight, which you would consider to be unheard of. So back to I said I would rewind. When starting the intermittent fasting, the first way we were introduced was the 16-8 routine, which is 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. That would be your windows open for those 8 hours. Now, I'm a retired pastor. I have pastored for 41 years. I have taught courses on prayer and fasting. So I've been a fan of fasting on the religious side of things, praying and fasting for healing, for other things. And so I was used to the fasting side of things. And so the 16-8 for me really actually became a little bit too easy. So I converted rather quickly to the 20 hours of fasting, 4-hour window of eating. But most of my days were actually 21 or 22 hours of fasting in a much shorter window. And the weight really was coming off just so much quicker than I had through Weight Watchers. Again, averaging closer to 2 pounds a week as opposed to 0.93. And amidst all that, while that's taking place, food is beginning to taste a whole lot different. I'm beginning to lose my desire for the junk food. I already shared about the coffee. I hated the idea of going to black coffee. That has totally changed now. And while I've mentioned the focus change goes beyond focusing on the what, more so focusing on the when. When are you eating? And Carol mentioned it in our opening session with the two of us. There's so much misinformation about breakfast as you study key nutritionists, doctors that are truly involved with nutrition. It's just a fallacy. And so we immediately got rid of breakfast, and then I got rid of lunch and just focused on dinner. I'd get home around 5:30, and we'd have a dinner. And I think Carol mentioned we'd have popcorn, basically every single night. But my window was only about 2.5, maybe 3 hours. Now, that's what led us to what is called OMAD, one meal a day. In fact, when we were on our summer vacation, we learned from two of our sons, unbeknownst to us, that they had been doing OMAD, one meal a day fasting, for years. And both are in excellent shape, quite thin, and I admire to get to their physical condition. Jordan and Preston have just done quite well with their fasting routines. But I wanted to share some things that have happened to me during this whole process of intermittent fasting and alternate day fasting. Keep in mind, the alternate day fasting has only been for a week right now, whereas the intermittent fasting has been going on for now for several weeks. Actually, a total of, I think, for me, 9 weeks, I believe, is altogether. But want to focus first and foremost on my diabetes. Type 2, my A1C had gotten up to over 8.1, and I was taking 5 to 6 shots of insulin every day. 2 different types of insulin, one called the long range, which I took in the morning and in the evening, and then the meal insulin shots, which I would have to take at least 3 a day, sometimes 4, depending on snacking. And altogether, I would take what would amount to about 75, depending on the day, to 85 units of insulin a day. Now, today, I have yet, as of today, had a shot of insulin. I'm averaging right now not 5 or 6 a day. I'm averaging about 4 to 5 a week. 4 to 5 a week. I've gone to my endocrinologist. She's up near Cincinnati. I actually gave her the book, which is called The Diabetes Code. You've heard Carol talk and us both talk about the Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung from Ontario, Canada. Yay, Canada. Actually, yay, USA, I should say that first and foremost, but my bloodline is from Canada. But he also wrote a book called The Diabetic Code, or the Diabetes Code, and he's a neurologist. So here I am talking to someone that understands diabetes as well as my kidney condition. And that's when he began to talk about the issue of insulin, where most weight loss is due to increased insulin. And here I am every day giving myself 5 to 6 shots a day. So I showed her the book, and to my surprise, all that weight gain I was having, but to my surprise, when I gave the book to my endocrinologist here, she said, "Oh, I follow Dr. Fung." She indicated being a fan of his, but I gave her the book. But as I left, I even said this to Carol, I was a little bit puzzled. If you follow this guy and you know them, why have you never suggested intermittent fasting to me? So again, during all that time of all these insulin shots, I'm gaining weight while I'm trying to lose weight. And so here I am now with a reduction in the amount of insulin. So I just wanted to share that. And by the way, my A1C now is below 5. And my doctor said to me that I may be one of the first individuals that she has taken off of insulin entirely. And that's what I'm shooting for. I'm really hoping by the end of the year, no more insulin whatsoever. So the diabetes issue has been a great success and resolution. My stamina has increased. Again, back to my stroke, I had gone through a season also of seizures in 2000, the latter part of 2023 and first part of 2024. Some of that was medicine related. Incidentally, I've reduced several medications as well. My endurance has increased because of the stamina. Steps wise, with Weight Watchers, we follow or track our number of steps. I'm averaging just over about 1,500 extra steps a day, about 10,000 extra steps a week that I'm averaging more than what I was getting through Weight Watchers. I had a goal of 5,000. I'm now hitting close to 7,000. I have a goal of trying to average 7,500 a week. Because of my stroke, it's probably going to be hard to ever get to 10,000, but I'll shoot for that. I mentioned the change in taste. I'm not drinking any soft drinks. I didn't bring it with me, but I'm drinking. Carol's got me hooked on sparkling mineral water. I mentioned about the black coffee. I'm now preferring the dark roast due to recommendation from my son-in-law Lee and my daughter Pamela. No sweetener of any type whatsoever. No cream. Now, during my window where I can eat, I can drink that if I want. I can add cream and sweetener if I'd like. I've just have gotten so used to the flavor, which I thought would never happen. I just figured I would drink it for the caffeine. But now I'm back to enjoying the flavor of coffee, black coffee, dark roast, which I never drank dark roast in my entire life. I always drank light roast because I thought it would be less bitter. But the dark roast actually is less bitter. And so limiting no soft drinks, limiting sugar, not excluding it. Again, we talked about the book, Delay, Don't Deny by Jen Stevens. And the last one is we're both limiting processed foods. We're buying a lot of things organic. I think Carol mentioned to you we're saving a lot of money. Organic is more expensive, but it's healthier for you. But we're just not buying canned foods. We're not buying things in a bag. I'm not eating tons of potato chips, although I do think my daughter Pamela, we had a celebration and she had some chips there. So yeah, I ate some Ruffles. You know why? Because Ruffles have ridges. Yeah, some of you probably aren't old enough to remember that commercial. Well, that's really what I wanted to share for the most part. Carol and I are going to continue with the alternate day fasting, which is no eating for an entire day. Typically goes into the second day, which is typically 36 to 38 hours of fasting, and then eating whatever. And we're both probably starting tomorrow. We're going to skip the breakfast because we're doing our first week breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I think we both have agreed it was just too much eating. We just felt too full, too bloated. So starting tomorrow, it'll be just lunch and dinner. And our commitment is to try to do that for 30 days and just see where things stand. We're not sure if we'll commit to the alternate day fasting. We just want to see some greater progress on the weight loss. But we are definitely sticking with intermittent fasting. We've talked to friends, family members. I'm not going to mention them by name, to protect their privacy. But I think it's upward, maybe close to a dozen family friends that have decided to commit to try the intermittent fasting, and we're getting reports from them. So it was great to chat. It was good that I could do my chatting and not be interrupted by my wife, although I think most of you are telling me that I'm the one that interrupts her. But that's okay. This is just me. You got to hear me blab on for a while, and it was great chatting with you. Until next time, this is Michael saying goodbye, and don't forget, what the scale?